All right, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. And before we begin, I do want to introduce our interpretation specialist, V. Torres, to give a little bit of introduction so we can go ahead and enable interpretation for our session today.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is B. My pronouns are she, her, ella. I'll be your Spanish interpreter with the Community Language Cooperative, or the CLC. And I want to thank you for your commitment to language justice. Language justice means that we should all be able to express ourselves in the language of our hearts. In a moment, we'll activate the interpretation function. And at that time, at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see a globe icon that reads interpretation. You'll click on that icon and select either English or Spanish as the language of your heart. If you are fully bilingual, you do not need to choose a language. Please remember to speak at a conversational pace so that I am able to provide an accurate rendition of your message. I'll repeat this in Spanish and then we can get started. Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Vi Torres. Mi pronombre es ella y yo seré su intérprete con la Cooperativa Comunitaria del Lenguaje o la CLC. Y les agradezco su compromiso con la justicia del lenguaje, lo cual significa que todos tenemos el derecho de hablar en el idioma de nuestro corazón. En un momento activaremos la función de interpretación y aparecerá un globo terráqueo en la parte inferior de su pantalla de Zoom. Favor de hacer clic en el icono y elija el idioma de su corazón. Si usted es bilingüe, no es necesario escoger un idioma. Les recuerdo que por favor hablen a un ritmo de conversación para poder brindar una interpretación precisa de su mensaje. Muchas gracias. Ya podemos comenzar.
All right, well, welcome again to our webinar today. We are happy that you have joined us to learn a little bit more about the Colorado Equity Compass and the data refresh that we're excited to share. We do have the webinar participants in listen-only mode, but we encourage you to use the questions and answers as well as the chat box to participate throughout today's session. We will have a dedicated time for questions and answers at the nearing the end of our session today. But again, encourage you to participate throughout. We are recording in both Spanish and English for today's webinar so that we can make it available to you and your colleagues afterwards if you would like to share. I'll go ahead and move us into some quick introductions to our team members, many of whom you can see on the screen here. My name is Alina Taniucci, and I am project manager for the Colorado Equity Compass, and I'm joined here by our wonderful colleagues who all make up part of the collaborative that support the Colorado Equity Compass. So that includes the Colorado Trust, Change Matrix, the Colorado Health Institute, and Consume and Create. And together, we support the Colorado Equity Compass. So for those who are unfamiliar, or maybe it has been a minute since you have joined us, this is our vision for this initiative, is that thriving communities are empowered by their data and stories. And at this point, I would like to invite our colleagues to tell a little bit about the story of the Colorado Equity Compass before we dive into more of those updates today.
Thanks, Alina. The Colorado Equity Compass grew out of an idea from inside the Colorado Trust and fostered by a group of passionate individuals with a shared mission to democratize data and better support Coloradans to tackle the complexities of health equity in our state. We envisioned a tool that could shine a light on disparities and guide community efforts towards a more equitable, healthier future. The story of CEC begins with a realization seeded by long-standing work the Trust supported in different parts of the state. Despite Colorado's natural beauty and vibrant communities, deep-rooted disparities were undermining the health and well-being of Coloradans. Income inequality, systemic racism, and geographic disparities were creating divergent paths to health outcomes. With decades of experience working alongside community members, we also knew there was a need for place-specific data, and we wanted to create an opportunity for multiple audiences to gain access to timely data and to be empowered to use and understand that data to help them in their work. The Trust recognized a need to move beyond anecdotes and discrete data that remained disconnected in various pockets of the state. But to do that, we needed a comprehensive, dynamic tool that could illuminate the hidden patterns of inequity and provide a platform to elevate unheard voices.
Thanks, Laura. I'll pick it up from there. So to elevate the voice of community and the work of community leaders, the Colorado Equity Compass Collaborative was created with the goal of using data to help inform and better equip various audiences, such as community members, funders, and policymakers to address inequities. And so the goal was to create a tool that was comprehensive, dynamic, accessible, that can illuminate the hidden patterns of inequity. So some of our early work included engaging with 4 pilot sites and using their feedback to guide development of the tool, understanding the drivers of disparity in health outcomes, and identifying data around the social determinants of health, such as income, education, access to care, and housing. We also focused on promoting the platform and engaging communities in using the tool. The early version of the Equity Compass was a modest one, but we expanded our efforts to present a more complete picture and include some of the stories behind the data, some of that richness. So stories that were documenting the unique challenges faced by communities in Colorado, as well as the lived experiences with these social determinants of health.
Thanks, Sandra. I'll pick it up from there. Matt from Consume and Create, he, him. When Consume and Create joined the collaborative, we set out to create a brand, look, and feel for the Equity Compass that was ubiquitous, simple, and familiar. We drafted off of textbooks to create an accessible, easy to understand brand and interface with a logo representing a North Star that ties back to our goal of the collaborative to be the most trusted health equity data source in Colorado. As the Compass evolved, we worked together to better integrate community narratives of lived experiences into the platform and to create not just a tool for analysis, but a platform for community voices to be heard. Community members could now add their stories, insights, and solutions, enriching the data with invaluable context. With each iteration, the Colorado Equity Compass gained momentum. It's become a more trusted resource for community organizations, foundations, policymakers, and interested Coloradans alike. Its insights have driven policy decisions, informed resource allocation, and sparked collaborations across sectors. And while listening to what is needed and how the platform can be more useful and truer to its intention to address health inequities, we've worked to bring new data sources, bringing in more advanced analytics and better integrating place-based information, bringing data and stories into the same space with geotags. While constantly looking to improve our data, both qualitative and quantitative, we're also trying to ensure the platform remains user-friendly and approachable for anyone who wants to know more about the places they live and how they compare to the rest of the state. And I'll pass it to Rachel.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, and everyone for kind of really giving us the context for why the Colorado Equity Compass was created and really the vision behind it. And so I'm very excited to share with you all today some information about how we've updated the platform, and then also go into a demonstration and really just get into the tool and start looking at it. So some really exciting tools of the platform are Equity Data Navigator, which really dives into that data about the social determinants of health, a big story bank that has stories from communities all over Colorado, and also resources for action. And each of these pieces are tied together through our website. So something that we've been working on over the past year is new updates to the data. So not only getting the newest, most recent data to make it the most relevant information for communities, but also looking at our metrics and really refining them so that we really hone in on those key metrics that can measure really important trends that are happening in our communities. So for this next part, I'll actually go and do a walkthrough of the Compass to really show you the tool. And you're welcome to follow along at your own pace as well. So if you use the links in the chat or use this QR code, you can actually pull up the Compass website yourself. And I'll be sharing my screen and kind of going along, but you're also welcome to kind of click around and explore it as we're talking through it. Okay, so let me go ahead and start sharing my screen. Okay, so this is the landing page for the Colorado Equity Compass. And I'm going to show you a few different pieces of the site. And I'm going to start with the Equity Data Navigator, which you can find up here. And let me also mention that you can easily switch between the English and Spanish version of the site by using this tab over here. So let's go into the Equity Data Navigator. And this Data Navigator is really going to show us some key information about health outcomes in our state and also the social determinants of health that really go into influencing those health outcomes. And we'll be able to see these numbers not only at the county level, but also at the neighborhood/census tract level. So the first thing that we're going to do here is go and look at a specific county. And so for this demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and choose Wells County. Okay, so we're actually in the Equity Data Navigator now, and this is a map of Wells County. And right now it's displaying statistics for the whole county itself. And once I start clicking around here, these numbers are going to change and actually show me the differences in the different areas and census tracts in the county. So you can really kind of click around here a lot and just see a ton of variation, just neighborhood to neighborhood, sometimes even just across a single road. There's significant differences in these key health statistics. On the right side over here, we have some overview metrics of the county. So we have some information about language, information about educational attainment, median family income, and population by race and ethnicity. And you can keep going over here to see even more information about these key overview metrics by that racial and ethnic breakdown. So you can see, for example, American Indian or Alaska Native by population percent, median family income, and bachelor degree or higher. At this banner here at the bottom of the screen, it shows some key health outcomes. So we have the average life expectancy, the percent of people who report good health, and the percent of people who report good mental health. And we also have a measure of racial diversity in the area, which is the percent of people of color who live there. If we scroll down, we can see more information about the social determinants of health. We have them all listed out here in these boxes. And the way that we've displayed this information, each one of them has an index associated with it. And the index tells you whether that particular location is performing better or below the state or county average. So at the moment, I'm displaying the statistics for Wells County as a total. And so it's showing me that among these social determinants of health, Wells County is above the state average in economic and health services and below the state average in the other social determinants of health. And if you're wondering, well, what goes into this index, you can click on each of these social determinants and see the key metrics that we've chosen for each of the different determinants. So for example, in economic, we have statistics about employment, median family income, and families with financial stability. We can look at another determinant as well, health services. And in this one, we can see that we have some statistics about the ability of people to access doctor care when they need it, proximity and access to behavioral health facilities, and also the percent of people with health insurance. So on your own time, you'll be able to go through and click through each one of these and really see the different key metrics that we have here on the tool, and also how this compares to the various state and county averages. If we keep going down, we have a section about key factors. So these are among all of the different metrics that we're looking at within the social determinants of health, the 5 factors that were most correlated with high self-reported good health. So for Weld County, we can see that among the greatest associated factors, we have families with financial stability, median family income, access to doctor care, et cetera. If we keep going down, we can see there's actually a place to download the entire data set. So this is something that's very new with our new data refresh, is that every single data point that you can click on and explore in the Equity Navigator is actually available in an easy to use Excel document. So we hope that, if you are ever looking to grab some data on your own and do things with it, that you'll think of this side of the resource to really be able to easily download this data. Another thing that I want to show is the ability to actually compare different areas to each other. So if you look at this box over here, I can actually type in a county or census tract and compare it to the one I'm looking at right now. So for this example, I'll go ahead and type in Larimer County. And then it'll actually pull up a comparison. So this is the same information as on the other site that we were just looking at. However, this time it shows Weld County and Larimer County side by side, and you can really check out all the different social determinants of health and the various metrics right by each other and really see the differences and nuances there. If we keep going, the bottom part of this page really, it to me is where the Equity Compass shines and how it knits together these various pieces of information. So we just looked at a bunch of data, we just explored it, and now we're thinking about how can we take action. So down here, we have a few different resources. First, we have Find Partners, and this will show you partners based on filters on the location that you're looking at, and it also shows statewide partners. And so you can see different community-based organizations and other types of partners that could be good to reach out for, various types of advocacy and work in the different realms of social determinants of health. There's also a tab to Finding Resources where you can look and find even more information about the social determinants of health and the social factors that go into health. And then this tab is one of my favorites, which is Read Community Stories. And so this part actually links directly to our story bank. And each story has a geotag associated with it, as well as tags for the social determinants of health. So you'll actually be able to look at stories kind of based on what you've been looking at in the Equity Data Navigator. So we could look at this one, for example. And this is a story about how to protect, how Project Protect promotores help agricultural workers. And this particular story was collected through a grant that the CEC was able to give out to a community organization. And for those grants, we were really open with how we allowed community members to really share their story. And this particular group decided to share their story via an infographic. So you can go to the link and see on their website the way that they captured the impact of their programming and just all this information that they have about the work that they've done and how they've really captured it in these infographics. And so you can kind of get to the story bank through the Equity Data Navigator. You can also go to the story bank directly from the main site. You can click on stories and it'll bring up the entire story bank. And you can use these filters on the side to filter by county, whichever one you're kind of interested in looking at. And you can also filter by social determinant of health as well. So for example, if I wanted to look at education, I can go ahead and click that and look at the different stories across the state relating to education. So that was a really quick kind of overview of the Equity Data Navigator tool. I hope it kind of gave you an idea of the possibilities of the tool. I'm very excited to share this with everyone, and I want to kind of pass it over to the other members of the team to kind of talk about their favorite parts of the Equity Data Navigator and what gets them kind of excited about it. So I'll pass it over to Matt first to talk about kind of his favorite part of this tool.
Yeah, I actually have a couple. One that I just wanted to highlight. When you're on the Equity Navigator page, any of the values that you see in the little yellow bubbles are a comparison of that statistic or that, key piece of data to the state average. So you'll see those kind of throughout. So, not only comparing an area to an area, like anytime we're showing a statistic or anytime we're showing data, we're kind of showing, where it compares to a state average. And then, yeah, I just really like the comparison feature. On your own time as you go drill down, maybe go look at your own neighborhoods and stuff, and you'll be blown away by some of the considerable inequities that can exist even in two neighboring neighborhoods. So
Yeah, definitely. It's so interesting because we have so many, we have all the counties and all the census tracts available, and so that's kind of like a ton of data within itself. And then there's also the ability to compare, which kind of brings into even more, complexity and nuance into the picture. I'll pass it over to Change Matrix to kind of talk about one part of the equity compass that they're really excited about.
I really appreciate, so Rachel, you mentioned that we have resources tab. And so I appreciate the ability to kind of search by content and type. And then just wanted to point out that there's some really cool toolkits that can help you collect data, engage community members, facilitate conversations, tell stories. And so there's a lot of really rich resources that you can kind of, that can help or complement the data that's also available there. So if you want to kind of draw the quantitative data from the EDN, you can kind of collect some more qualitative information to complement that.
Yeah, great point, Sandra. That's something that Alina's showing now that I didn't show in my walkthrough is the resources tab, which has all of that information, which you get to from the main site. Okay, and then I'll pass it over one more time to Laura to talk about her favorite use of the site.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rachel. So as a funder, it is invaluable to have a data source to better understand areas of high need across the state, and then to use this important data to inform grant making strategies. This is one of the ways that we use the Equity Navigator at the Colorado Trust, and the CEC Collaborative has heard the same from other funders. I also wanted to call out what Rachel highlighted as one of the new pieces of the data refresh, which is being able to download an entire data set. I think as someone who is sort of a data nerd, I think being able to not only see it in this interface, but also be able to pull it out. And as Rachel said, sort of play around a little bit with that and then pull specific pieces out that are most helpful in telling your story is really helpful and important.
Yeah, thanks so much, Laura. And after we were finished building the data set, I looked at how many individual data points there are, and there's actually over 96,000 data points in that data set. Don't worry, it's organized very easy to use, but there's definitely a lot of stuff there for if you're ever curious to really look at the numbers yourself. Okay, so thanks so much everyone for going through that story and through the walkthrough. I'll go ahead and pass it over to Sandra so we can start doing some Q&A.
There is one question that came in, and whether the EDN over time will be able to show trends.
I feel quite qualified to maybe answer this one. I don't know. Rachel, go ahead if you want to, but
oh no, please go ahead, Matt.
So this is actually the third iteration of us capturing data. So this is the third data set that we've worked with. We've saved all of the previous snapshots. The complication kind of comes in that like each year the data changes just a little bit, or the data that's available changes a little bit. So we don't have like the exact same key data set each time. But that's definitely somewhere where we're trying to take this. So we're trying to solve that issue of like, over those 3 data sets, there's absolutely some growth, there's some trends, there's some changes that would be like really interesting that we could show. And that's one of our goals over the coming years. I don't know if you would add anything to that, Rachel.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right, Matt. We have like all of this information saved. So there's definitely some potential there. Another challenge is just the way with the data is collected. Oftentimes when you're looking at like data that's at that neighborhood level, at that census tract level, it's already a combination of several years and able to get enough information to actually display statistics about that area. So then it becomes kind of difficult comparing year ranges to year ranges, especially if they overlap. It's like kind of becomes a question of what are you actually comparing, if you're comparing different things or the same thing to itself. So it's definitely a question that we've gotten from a lot of people. And so we're trying to think about ways to really show like meaningful change over time. And yeah, something that we're definitely puzzling over. So thanks for the question.
Are there any other questions that are of interest? Feel free to type them in the chat or in the Q&A. Or even if you don't have questions, just hearing about how you might use the information that was presented. If this is your first time kind of being exposed to the tool, how might you use it? I saw a few people mention that it seems pretty user-friendly and an exciting resource. So feel free to share any ideas that are coming up for you.
And while people are doing that, I wonder if I might ask a question that we get often around incorporating local data sets into the Equity Data Navigator, and if we have any plans for doing that or how that might look.
Yeah, that is such an exciting question. So we have a lot of really exciting work planned for the next couple of years with this team. And part of that is really thinking through how we can create a local data set repository. And so how might that be kind of different than the Equity Data Navigator? Is that the Equity Data Navigator, as it is right now, it shows data at that local census tract level. However, the way that we select data that appears on the Navigator, it has to be data that's available for the entire state. So if it's not available for the entire state, then it's not showing up on the Equity Data Navigator now. But we know that, different locations collect data differently, do different studies, have different capacity to even collect data in the first place and look at it. And so we're trying to think about how could we create a central hub for people to store and share that kind of data that might be a little bit more specific to a certain area, but you could really use as a model for other areas, or really get the lessons learned from sharing those resources and having a centralized place. So over the next couple of years, we're really going to be developing this local data set repository, and really talking to a lot of people and asking them like what they would like to see out of it. And so definitely like a big effort that we're going to be launching. So certainly if you have like any ideas or inputs or have thought about that at any point, we welcome you to share any insights you have with us through like our contacts and everything, our contact email. Really open to hearing feedback and ideas about that.
That's good. I see in the chat that Jean shared that they plan to use the tool to support grant applications. I think it's a great use of the tool. And we've actually have heard from, the Colorado Trust, that some of their grantees have used it and found it really helpful.
Yeah, I was actually wondering if our group could share a couple of like use cases that we've heard of with the Colorado Equity Compass. I know that's something that folks are usually interested in hearing a little bit more about as well. I don't know, Rachel, if you might want to share something that I think someone from Project Angel Heart may have used.
Yeah. Yeah, so one of the social determinants of health that we have on the site is food. And one of the metrics that we have is related to the percent of people per county or per neighborhood who have access to healthy food. And that's kind of defined as having proximity to a supermarket. And so there was someone who was helping Project Angel Heart do an analysis of where there might be gaps in food access. And so they were actually able to go onto the Colorado Equity Compass site and download the data and use that for their own kind of strategic planning around, that particular organization, providing direct access to food. So that was a really exciting thing that we heard about, and are always super happy to hear stories like that. So please do share if you know of anyone using the Compass or if you use it yourself.
Alina, if you don't mind, I can share one just from this morning. So thanks to Alina and Sandra, who fielded a TA technical assistance request. There's a really large nonprofit partner serving many southern Colorado counties. I don't want to disclose, but they were really trying to understand food access issues at the census tract level. And they were asking me, what did I know? What communities had I worked in? And so I recommended the Equity Compass as a potential tool for them to use. And they did try, and they said, hey, we're new to this. How can we use this to really get at the information we're seeking? And it was really neat. And I just want to say, I appreciate Alina and Sandra, who were like, yeah, we'll help them. What are they looking for? What are their specific questions? And so by connecting this large nonprofit with this technical assistance, I think we're also able to support organizations in the work that they're trying to do in maybe meeting their reach goals that this particular organization is trying to understand, gaps in services, and who's really underserved in this expansive sort of multi-county service area. So again, I think that's just another sort of applied lesson. Not only is it like the tools for planning or grant writing, but it's also the technical assistance support as someone's just trying to accomplish their sort of day-to-day work.
Thanks for raising that up, Mia. And kind of along those lines, we are launching a few offerings this fall and into next year that are really focused on capacity building. And so we'll be launching 2 learning collaboratives, one focused on using data, and then another focused on data storytelling. And so if that, look out for those if that's of interest to you. But I think the idea is that will provide some more intensive support in terms of mining the data and writing stories. And so if that feels like a good match for you, we welcome you all to apply. So more will be coming about those. I don't see any other questions.
I can ask another one. I was curious if we could share a little bit more about what our plans are for updating this data. I know it's got some of the most recent census tract data that's available, but I was curious about, do we have plans to update, and when are those maybe expected?
Yeah, that's a great question, Alina. At the moment, we are updating the Compass every year with new data. So one thing that is kind of like a behind the scenes thing of the Compass is that this data actually comes from a lot of different sources. And we do a ton of work to really get that data into a place that it looks like seamless and looks, you can look across the state and see it in the same form. And so throughout the year, as new data is being released from various sources, we're collecting it and, building our new data set for the next year. And so our current cycle is that around the beginning of the year, we'll kind of push all that new data to the website and announce that, hey, we've got some some new data available. So right now we're updating the data every year and kind of collecting data throughout the year.
And can you share what years are represented in the current data set?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a blend because of our various data sources, but much of the data comes from the census. And just the way that the data kind of works, in order to look at census tracts, you have to do 5-year combinations of data. And so the current most recent data right now is from 2022 and the 5 years before that. So that is what most of the years on the data is on the site right now. And that's the most recent data that's actually available from the census.
Yeah, yeah, understanding that there's always a lag.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, maybe we should kind of transition to talking about what's coming up in the near future, how to stay connected.
Yeah, so there are a few prompts here to stay connected with us and keep up to date on a few things that we just mentioned today around the learning collaboratives, as well as sharing your stories, or if you have any questions or specific requests for our team, you can reach out to us at hello@coequitycompass.org. There is also a contact form on our website. We invite you to join us on social media, and Sandra, Rachel, and I will actually be doing a couple of upcoming conferences, including the Shared Risks and Protective Factors Conference. We have a Colorado Equity Compass data storytelling workshop, I believe on the 21st. Rachel or Sandra, can you correct me if I'm wrong? Okay. So if you are planning on attending that, we welcome you to join our session. We're also excited to hopefully be presenting to some Colorado Trust grantees who have been working on building and bridging power soon, and how they can use the Colorado Equity Compass to continue to support their work beyond the funding cycle that they are in. And we have a couple other conference presentation proposals out there as well. So hopefully you will see us across the state and maybe at a couple of national conferences as well. But we are really trying to share the Colorado Equity Compass as a tool that communities, particularly in Colorado, can use, but maybe laying the roadmap for something that another state might explore as well. We do also have a mailing list, so there is a link here on the page. We welcome you to join that. We don't currently have a regular newsletter, but we do like to use that list to share exciting announcements such as the data refresh, and opportunities to join us as we have new efforts coming out. Sandra, team, anything else that I missed that you want to make sure we mention today?
We'll definitely be in touch. If you use the data, we'd love to hear, like, how are you using it? And we are really interested in drawing for more, building our story bank. And so if you have any stories that you'd like to share with us, that would be welcomed as well.
Yeah, and I'll just add on, like Sandra kind of mentioned it already, but you know, in the coming year, we'll be launching these learning collaboratives. And I just wanted to mention that for those learning collaboratives, we have, you know, grant dollars to actually be able to compensate community-based organizations to participate in those. And so we're really when we're ready to start recruiting for that, would really love you know, the help of everyone to kind of distribute that information far and wide. And if you are able to join our mailing list, then we'll be able to really get that information out to you, and hopefully get it everywhere. So very excited about that.
All right. Well, with that, I just want to say thank you again for joining us. A special thank you to B. Torres and the CLC for providing simultaneous interpretation for today. Again, we hope that you kind of follow along on our journey, and even more than that, engage with the compass and write your stories. Tell us what you're doing in your communities around improving health and health outcomes. And thank you all for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Yep,
everyone.
y'all.
Thanks, team.